repetitive voices that we're hearing different issues all the time in the media. And I knew that there were other voices that could give their expertise on those same issues that were completely off the feed. So I'm trying to find an expert. I did meet viewers. Welcome to another episode of the Nanaya Yebwa podcast. I am with my beautiful sister, Fennella. I had been tracking her work online for a bit, and I decided to reach out to her because she was doing something unique. But before then, I didn't even know that there were a lot of similarities with us, and which you channeled differently and I channeled differently. I will share that story. It is a beautiful narrative. It is invigorating. It's motivating. It's inspiring. And I should tell you this before I even go any further. I salute you, Fenella, from the decisions you made from high school to university to where we are now. You are my mentor from afar. If you don't know, I am telling you.
Oh, thank you
So,
so much. That is
so,
so sweet.
so now that the fandom is out of the way,
You made
now,
me blush. Uh-huh.
now that the fandom is out of the way, let me just give a little background about who you are. Fenella is a veteran television producer, writer, and you are now at the helm of FKB. Oh, FKB Media Productions Inc., a media consulting business and a media production house. But what really draws me to you is that you are a mother, number one, the greatest job of all time, a
Yes.
mother, an entrepreneur, a boss lady. You volunteer, you've done teaching.
Mhm.
It's like, what has this Black woman not done yet?
And sometimes when I hear this, I'm like, people are talking about me? I don't believe I'm doing all of this stuff.
What has this Black woman not done yet? And I say I'm busy, but I told you earlier, like, there are seniors and there are seniors. Your seniority tops mine.
Hmm.
That's it. Yes. And I see that we both alumni of U of T as well. And
Yes, UT. I went to UT Scarborough.
oh,
That was
Scarborough.
Mhm.
Yes.
I did some courses downtown, but I was a UT Scarborough alumni.
Okay.
Mhm.
I was at St. George campus, Woodsworth College. Yeah. And then from there, you went to do your journalism at Toronto Metropolitan University. During our time, it was called Ryerson.
Ryerson, yes. My degree
Yes.
still says Ryerson.
Yes. Welcome to the Nanaya Ayabua podcast.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me to be on. I'm quite excited about this conversation.
So am I. And you know what? This is a conversation. This is a question I ask people that say yes. Because, in media, connecting with people, you get a whole lot of no's.
Yep.
If I show you my list of contacts, people I've contacted, and the number of no's, it's like, but then you get the yeses that you least expected, and yours was one of them.
Oh.
Why did you say yes to me?
Why did I say yes to you? Well, you wrote me a very nice email. So that's the first step, graciously inviting me to be on your show. And so I definitely look at that. People, this writing is a lost art. And so someone who takes the time to sit down and write, not, hey, can you be on my show, but a little bit more about who they are and what they're looking for, I pay attention to that. And then, as we discussed earlier, Google is my best friend. So, of course, I Googled you to see what you're about. And I was like, okay, I like, her platform and what she's, the content and what she's trying to do. So I don't actually do a lot of interviews. I'm a more behind the scenes type of person.
Yes.
And so I like to, in particular, support women, support Black women and their endeavors. So all those things made me say yes.
Thank you. I truly appreciate it. I truly appreciate it. So most people don't know that once upon a time, my journey was to go into journalism,
Hmm.
but I branched into nursing and I did nursing and I'm still doing nursing full time. But then there was an opportunity that I walked into a studio which had newly opened and I said, I could do something. And that is how my journey started, just doing something. But in the course of doing something, I realized that the need to tell our stories as Black people globally is very, very important. Right now, the push to even create this platform for us is to uplift, because it is very, very much needed. Everybody is doing theirs. What are we doing for ourselves? And in my view, I cannot wait for the larger society to remember us. We need to do ours. And so when I saw what FKB Media was doing, it's like, yes, yes, yes. I don't have to look across to our brothers and sisters in America to have that feeling. It's right in my backyard, and Fenella is doing that. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. I should tell you, my mother was a nurse. So there are some synergies happening already between nursing, journalism, and you and I.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I'm not even going to ask what time you were at U of T. Otherwise, probably we were crisscrossing around that time.
Mhm, maybe.
And we'll give ourselves away. When you said, if I turn off the fan, I may have to fan, it's like, girl, I'm in the basement studio. That's why I'm chill.
Yes, I always have my handy fan.
I'm in my studio in the basement. That's why I'm chill, because it's nice and cool here.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll be joining you in the fanning. That is not intended to give our ages away. My dear, how was growing up like for you? Like, you grew up here, you were born in Canada, grew up here.
No, I actually was born in England.
Oh,
I was born in London, England. My parents are from Guyana, so
hmm,
they were part of that migration that went to England. My mother went there for nursing, and my father was in the Royal Air Force there, and then worked in the post office. And so, again, like Canada is part of the Commonwealth, and so they came here were looking for a better life opportunity. At the time that they were there, there was a lot of racism in the UK and London, and my father felt that my brother and I would have better opportunity. He would have better, job opportunity and treatment in Canada. And so then I came here when I was 4 years old. So, for all intents and purposes, yes, I grew up here. I lived here. I'm Canadian, but for the documentation, I was born in London, but I came here as from four. So I've been educated here from kindergarten up, and definitely Canada is my home.
that is beautiful. Normally, I really like to know the background, how the background of how a person became the person she is, and most often the psychology of the family unit
Hmm.
creates that grounding for that. Um, you were born here. Oh, sorry,
London,
you were born in England.
yes.
You were only 4 years old when you came. You didn't know the difference.
No. Although
You were,
I did have a British accent when I came, but it's not there anymore.
it's not there anymore. Growing up here in those times, how challenging was it?
It was challenging, and then it wasn't challenging. I grew up in an area that's called Leslieville now, so and it's been
Mm.
gentrified, but at the time when I moved in that area, it was very, very multicultural, a lot of immigrant families.
Mm-hmm.
My friends were Chinese, Greek, Black, from all walks of life. And we were sort of like this ragtag group of kids coming up. And, it was a different time. Uh, I lived close to downtown. I would hop on a streetcar and go downtown as a young child, and nobody would blink an eye. And it was a really fun upbringing. We roller skated, we played until the street lights came on, and all that kind of stuff. So it was good in that sense. But I also went through that time where, yeah, I was one of a few Black kids in the school. There was a lot of racism. There was, fights. There was name calling that was very hurtful. And so I had to, grow a thick skin. But coming back to when you're talking about upbringing, a lot of my confidence and about who I am, particularly as a Black woman, comes from my home, from my parents, right? And they always instilled in me from young, I didn't mince words, would tell me what to expect from people or what people would expect from me, and to defy those expectations. And they really hammered home the importance of education. But within my home, like I have a picture of myself 2 years old with my black doll. Like I had black dolls before it was a
It
thing,
became a
right?
thing. Yeah.
And the books and stuff that I had, yes, and I had Barbie dolls. Don't get me wrong, I had other stuff, but they also made sure I saw myself reflected. That I had books that reflect me, and so I think that also makes a difference when you're getting that support. I went to something. I think it might have been in like around grade 5. I was 10 maybe, so maybe grade 4, grade 5, and they were doing a pilot project of what they call Black School, African Caribbean school. So they had a program on Saturdays, because at that time they had Chinese school, so they had the kids after school that would come and do, I guess, Mandarin or whatnot. And so there was a push to have this, and we went, my brother and I, to this program on Saturday, and we learned about Harriet Tubman, and we learned about Martin Luther King, a lot of American stuff, but we learned about our so-called culture. So all of those things, I think, definitely had an impact on me in terms of, walking strong, knowing who I am, not letting other people put me down, and really knowing that one way that I could get ahead was definitely by making sure that I was a bookworm. I read all the time. I spent days in the library. And I was very, very good at school. Like I was an A student.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that is beautiful. For the books, the library used to be my second home. So,
Yeah, Jones Library. That was my place, and I would
yeah.
spend, Saturdays, summers in the library just reading books.
Yes, yes, yes. And for today's generation, that normally we sit on social media and just scroll, I found the library, the tactile texture of
Mhm.
books to be calming, and flipping through and even smelling the books, or sitting in a corner and just going through or scanning through the books here and there to see what is interesting and pick up a book and do this. It's but I sometimes feel like we losing it and
Well, yeah, I agree with you, and I think that it's just what we're talking about. A lot of that comes from home. My children, I have a son and a daughter, and from young, I mean, they were reading from 3, and I would read to them when they were babies, and we had books everywhere, and we would, lie in bed, and I'm reading the paper, and they're reading their books. It was part like of our existence.
Mhm.
They had library cards. It was part of, okay, let's go to the library and spend a day and do things. So it was part of their upbringing, and they're both in their 20s now, and my son has, I think, about at least 3 bookshelves full of books, right? When growing up, he would use his money, like his birthday money, his stuff, to go and buy books. Even though, like, why are you paying like $80 for this book? The $80 worth of books, you could get something else. He wanted the actual, like you say, the actual book,
Yes.
right? My daughter, I think she has about 2 or 3 bookshelves full of books. Like they still have that. Yes, they're on their phones, but they still have that love of reading, which I think every parent should instill in their child from young.
Well, I tried. My daughter buys books, my son buys video games, and it gets me upset.
Well, don't get upset. I mean, my son plays video games too, so it's a balance, right? So
Yeah.
you just keep encouraging them. I have a nephew, and so I wanted to encourage him to read books. So I just
Hmm.
found out what it is, like the what is, like, I can't remember right now, but there's Percy Jackson was one of them, and
Yeah.
I can see the other kid that a lot of kids were reading. There was a movie about him, so I got him those books. I got him those books in the series because,
Hmm.
or I would buy him the graphic because he likes superheroes. So
Yes.
it doesn't. People get so caught up in the type of books they're reading, right? Like, oh, I want him to read,
Or
War and
manga.
Peace, right, or whatever, right? But it's as long as they're reading something, right?
Something.
Find out what
Yes.
they love, the passion that are interested in, and give them those things, and then it will grow from there. They get used to reading, then they want
So,
more.
so parents, this is a life advice.
It is, and
This is
it's tried and true.
Fenella's life advice. And you know what? I love it because not often do we get this kind of information. I know we're talking about media, but to get this personalized kind of information, which is tested, tried, and true,
Mhm.
is hard to come by. You have to pay her for her to give you this information. And
Well,
now she's sharing it freely with you.
yeah, and one other point is that children are sponges, right? And they want to mimic, right? Their heroes, their mother, their father, right? Their role model, their uncle, their aunt, whoever they're seeing. So if they see you and they see you reading, they will copy you, and they want to do, even if they can't read the words on the page, they want to do what you're doing. So a lot of parents will try to be like, oh, go read your books, go to, but you're not doing it, so they're not going to do it. So you have to show them, and they will copy you. It's that simple.
Monkey see, monkey do.
Do. Yep, exactly.
I remember my son as a baby. I used to read so much in bed. There are books always underneath my pillow. He was sleeping and he had one of my books on top of his head, like as if all the words are going to get into his head. But that is the beauty of it. So let's get back to you.
Mhm.
Life work balance. When your children were growing, how did you do that?
What's that?
What's that?
There's no such thing. I had a lot of people who would ask me that question. How do you do it? And um, my children's father and I separated when they were quite young, toddlers, and so I was working and raising them. I was the primary caregiver, and working in journalism in the newsrooms at that time. And people, how do you manage. Even the other day, I'm sure you're familiar with Tammy Sutherland on Breakfast Television. She's having a baby, and she emailed me. She's like, I don't know how you used to do it in the morning television with the kids. And I just said, you know what? You just do it. You don't think about it. You figure out how you're going to do it.
We need a formula.
There's no formula. You just do it, and days turn into months, weeks turn into months, months turn into years, and before you know it, you've done it. And I definitely would say, obviously, I'm a person of faith, right? So God was guiding me and helped me through a lot of tough moments and gave me the strength. And sometimes, yeah, I wanted to give up. It's natural, right? This is hard. Nobody said it was going to be this hard, right? But you figure it out. And I had a strong family support, friend support group, and that's important too. I tell people, like, figure out who your tribe is, and don't be afraid to ask for help. I think the times that people, literally are drowning, right, is because they're not either asking for help, or they're not taking that lifeline that's being thrown to them, because a lot of times it's just pride. Pride is a deadly sin. It will pull you down every time, right? So everybody, I think, needs to recognize that we're all the same. So sometimes you think, oh, this person's life is so much better than mine, or how come everything's working for this person? You don't know what's happening behind closed doors. You don't know what's happening when they're, in their room by themselves. You can never assume that. You'd be so surprised at the people that you think have it all. And we see it in celebrity life. The people that you think have it all, they're just like you, figuring it out.
Thank you for bringing that reality back to us, because when you're looking from the outside into the pot
Hmm.
of cooked meal, it's like, oh, it looks good,
Hmm.
but to put the ingredients together, that is where the challenge is. And you summed it up beautifully. So you're a young black girl living in this country called Canada,
Hmm.
in the GTA area, and high school, university. Then you decide to go to do journalism.
Hmm.
What was it?
Well, why did I decide to go and do journalism?
Yes.
Okay, so when I was in high school, I was very good at writing. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was fascinated by television and how those people were inside that box and how did they get there. And so I found that interesting. And I didn't know at that point what I wanted to do. I was actually thinking about being a lawyer. I did very well in my law class and I got a bursary when I graduated. And I started thinking, okay, maybe I wanted to be a journalist because I was, like I said, gifted at writing. I applied. I got into Carleton Journalism School, and I got a scholarship to York University, and I got into U of T. I went to visit Carleton in Ottawa, and I just I didn't. Well, there's two things. I was afraid about leaving home. It was the comforts of home and being on my own. So that really made me nervous. And I wasn't sure I wanted to lock myself into the journalism degree because I wasn't 100% sure I wanted to do that. So I didn't want to just do a specialized degree like that. And then what if I changed my mind? So then I was debating between York and U of T. I lived in the East End. And so I didn't really want to even that to me was like far. I didn't want to travel that far to go to school. So I decided to go to U of T. So once I was at UT Scarborough campus, I was still interested in journalism, but I was just doing English bachelor's, and I wrote for the Underground, which was the paper at U of T Scarborough, and I wrote for the Varsity, which was the paper for downtown U of T.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a radio station at Scarborough, so I was the program director for that radio station, and I also had a radio show on there for the weekends. And so I knew I still wanted to do media. The only missing piece was television. There was no television option. So I think it was maybe in my second year I started looking at what I could do after I finished and what were my options. And one of them was Ryerson or TMU had a graduate program. There was a couple other graduate programs, but I was looking at Ryerson because it was said to be the best one out there. And so I looked into what was required. I finished off my BA at U of T, and then I applied to this program. And so this program, there's like 700 people across the country that apply to it. They take 60 people. And
6-0.
6-0. And so I applied. I had to do a current events test. I had to do an essay. I had to provide my clips, my articles that I had written before. So any sort of work that I had, and you had to do an interview. So I had to do the interview, and the interview, I did it, and it was the day after my birthday, and I had been out celebrating. And so I went into this interview, and I wasn't hungover yet. I'm not a big drinker, but I was tired. I wasn't my perky self I am right now, right? So I went and I was tired, and I went into the interview, and this gentleman was there. His name was John Miller, and we talked, and he asked me questions about why I wanted to be in this program and what did I think about journalism in Toronto and Canada, those sort of things. And I just said I think the newsrooms are underrepresented, and I cited this article that I read in the Toronto Star, and and they had recently done, and we had that kind of discussion. So I got into the program. I was so surprised because I left there thinking, okay, what are my other options at this point? Where am I going to go? And I got into the program, and the first day where I'm there in the lectures, talking to everybody, and then he's like, oh, we're having a visitor coming to welcome the class. And in walks John Miller, who happened to be the dean of the program. I didn't know this. I was was like, I had the toughest interviewer. I was like, what the heck? And so that, I think, also coming back to finding confidence, that gave me a lot of confidence that I really belonged in that program, because if the dean could decide that, that I should be there, then I should be there, because I was the only Black student in that program. And so when you walk in that room, you're like, okay, where's everybody else, right? Then you kind of start to feel like, why was I chosen, or why did I get here, or, should I be here, et cetera, et cetera. So I went in this program. It was a 2-year program, and I found it to be amazing. It was so hands-on, and I got the television
So,
experience that I was
so,
craving.
so
Mhm.
just a little pause. So you had imposter syndrome going on with you
Oh, definitely.
then.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for
Wow.
sure. Yeah. And again, I was one of, you know, the few people, like, again, I'm coming from someone who has a degree already, right? So I'm
Hmm.
a person who's like, okay, she has her degree and now she's getting to it at the time. Now it's a master's program or a graduate program. And so I know there was a lot of like assumptions about me, and a lot of like, how did she get here, or, that sort of thing. And those things I was used to at this point in my life, right? At that point in my life. So it didn't really bother me. But I found like, I found my what I was searching for. And so
Hmm.
there was the television program, there was a documentary TV program. I signed and I streamed in the second year all TV, because I loved every part of it. And I had a natural knack for writing short TV news stories. And I didn't know at that point I was going to be a producer. I thought I was going to be a reporter, as everybody does when they say they want to be in journalism. Everybody, because that's all you see, right? You
Yes.
see the reporter, you think that's the only job. And so I started volunteering at Citytv, City News. That's a whole other story. But one of my mentors was Jojo Chinto, and he was the person who got me in there. And so I started to see what other jobs were in the newsroom.
I have to send him this conversation when we are done.
Yes, Jojo's my guy. He came and spoke to my journalism class, and he talked about a series that he was doing, a crime series that he was doing, and he invited the class to give their feedback about it. And I was in a class with people who had, parental connections, and people that they knew, their family knew, that I knew that after we finished school that they would have a job, right? And so my mindset in those 2 years was that I was going to have to hustle, because of I told you, like, my parents were nowhere near anything to do with journalism. And so I was going to have to figure out my own network and my own connections. So
Hmm.
everybody, not just Jojo, but everybody that came
Hmm.
to speak to my class, I made sure I followed up with them and tried to build some sort of rapport with them, whether it was just a thank you card or
Hmm.
my insight on my opinion on their talk or whatever it was, so that I could start building
Yeah.
those connections. So I called Jojo and I gave him my feedback on his series. I was the only one in the class that did. And he invited me to come down to shadow him in the newsroom. And from there, it just blossomed. And I would go and I would help. I would just transcribe tapes for him or for other reporters, anything that I could do to be in that room. And people got to know me, and I got to see what different jobs were. So I started practicing writing in that style, and that sort of thing. And a writing position when I finished school. And actually, I didn't work anywhere for a year after I finished school. I did my own PR company, and that was just out of. I didn't get any jobs. I had, like you talk about no's, I had a stack of, because I still at that point thought I was going to be a reporter. I had a stack of like rejection letters from my demo tapes that I would send out hoping to be a reporter, like, no, not at this time. And so I was doing like PR for like community groups and stuff, because I
Hmm.
one of my other mentors had told me, like, one of the most important things that you want to do is that when you're in a room with somebody and say, like, what are you doing, you can say you're doing something. Right? So I was like trying to keep busy, and I interned for a summer at CTV. And then uh, it's almost like the jealous girlfriend. The people at City heard that I was at CTV, and they were like, oh, let's snatch her up before CTV does, right? And I applied for a position, came a part-time position became open at Breakfast Television for a writer,
Mhm.
and I applied for that and I received it. And when I say part-time, the job started at 4 a.m. and finished at 9 a.m. So, and I lived in Scarborough and it was the winter. And so that is the sort of, you do these things because and you don't know where it's going to take you. But if you are really hungry and you want opportunities, you take whatever opportunity you get, and then you make something out of it from there. So I took the job in October, and by February they offered me a full time position, and I was moved to the 6 o'clock and the 11 o'clock news, and I became a writer. And one of the things my boss at the time encouraged me, and when I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm a writer, and he's like, the writing position is the best position in a newsroom to learn and know everybody else's position because you interact with everybody. You interact with assignment, you interact with producers, you interact with the camera people, you interact with the editors, you interact with the reporters, you interact with the anchors. And so you get a good feel for how the newsroom works and all of the different positions. And then from there, you can decide, okay, do I want to stay a writer or I want to move on? So I eventually became a senior writer, and then I became a producer.
Wow, that is incredible. That is incredible. And I appreciate between the two of us, one of us actually went through that journey. I The best thing that happened is social media. I took the social media route, and that is where we are creating this platform to be able to share this narrative. But you really went through the hard hustle route.
I did. And it's funny. I went into social media kicking and screaming. You wouldn't guess that, but I just did not want any part of it at all. I'm still questionable.
Greatest thing for us is social media in the sense that at any point in time, like conversations like this, when we are done and everything is out, I'm able to share it with mentees in Ghana or people that I know who will benefit from listening to stories like yours, learning from stories like yours. And this is what I say, always have a pen and a paper beside you because you learn a lot from the lives of people that you are not there yet, or you may not be there, or you're going through that particular challenge at this point in time. And that is how you get to learn and whatnot. You've been through it, you've accumulated knowledge, you've accumulated wisdom. And mm, if I'm permitted to use the word sexy, it is sexy as, I'm not going to swear.
I'll accept it. I receive it.
It is beautiful. It makes, for me, it's like the that's my high, that's my joy. Like when I see black people doing great stuff, navigating through our challenges, but as black women, not letting us being the only black women in the class or in the room pull us down. In fact, that's where you really see what black excellence and black joy looks like.
Yes. No, definitely. And it's not without its trials. It's not without its, sometimes, I felt, hey, like I just want to just come in and do my job. I don't want to have to carry my community on my shoulders. I don't want to have to be the one who's always speaking up, for the black community. I just want to be like Sally and come in and do what I'm supposed to do, right? It can be wearing at times, right? Where it's like, oh, what do you think about this? Well, I don't really know anything about Jane and Finch. I didn't grow up there. So I can't answer that question, right? As much as you think I can. Or I don't know anything about Jamaica because I'm not Jamaican, right? But this is the thing, right?
You spoke about, doing our producing at City TV and all these places, and you broke ground in some of these new television shows that came up. What was the important thing for you for the story that was being told?
Well, I mean, I think that everybody has a story. And um, as much as we think that maybe the story is just about like one community or one person, We'd be surprised how relatable stories are to everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, a mother's story. It's not about a black mother's story, a white mother's story. If you have a child, you can relate to a mother who's in pain over losing her child, you know, in an accident or a shooting or something, right? So there, you know, I really enjoyed. Like I would write stories for the anchor and they would read them. So and there were longer pieces. So I really enjoyed the ability to tell someone's story, give them a platform for their voice to be heard, and like give other voices that we don't always hear an opportunity to rise up and share their experiences, and you know different community events or different things, and not just only black, although that was obviously you know my connections, but you know learning about other communities just makes you an overall better person.
Mm-hmm.
I was a big with my children growing up, they everybody was like, oh, I want to be your child, because every summer or any opportunity we traveled, because I wanted them to have the experience of seeing how their other people lived, how lucky they were, right? But also to experience different cultures, different foods, so that they're open minded about the world and not closed minded about things, and they can have those experiences. So, you know, I think it's important, and because we live in Toronto, Canada, and we have so many different people from all over the world in one place, that we take advantage of that, right? And take advantage of those experiences. So that was important to me as a producer, like that we open it up and it was like a kaleidoscope of stories, and they're not just one lens that we're looking at things.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Great. Beautiful. Wow. So, business. Let's talk about business. What was that transitioning? What was that transitioning like for you? Moving from being paid to boss lady, building your own business.
Well, the turning point for me, I think, was a couple things. I had experienced two layoffs. They were very short layoffs, but they still were layoffs, and they still were traumatic. And so, and as we know now, like the media business is changing dramatically. So there's nothing like walking in thinking you have a job and then you don't. It's very traumatizing. And so I didn't like that feeling. And and there was nothing you can do to control that. It had nothing to do with you being a good employee or working. It was just about numbers. It was a bottom line
Yes.
thing, right? So I didn't like that feeling of, and I don't want to say I'm a controller, but I like to be in control of a lot of things. And so that I felt was too precarious for me. And I had also felt like I had reached the like I wasn't being challenged anymore. I could do
Mm-hmm.
my job with like, you know, a third of my brain, and I could do other things. And so it was kind of starting to feel very cyclical. And I felt
Mm-hmm.
like I looked around and I felt, is there anywhere else I want to go? Is there something I want to aspire to in newsroom? And there wasn't. Everything else that above me in senior positions or whatnot, I just felt it was going to be more work and more stress. And I wasn't interested in going down that path. And then the third thing was that my children were older. They were in their late teens. They didn't need me as much. They had their own lives. They could drive themselves around, all those sort of things. And so I had a little bit more time on my hands. And I thought back to, and I actually went and I had a job coach.
Mm-hmm.
And so we explored different things of what motivated me. And I remembered like when I had graduated school and I was doing my own little business. And that was exciting to me. And along the way throughout my career, I've done things, you know, small things, writing things on the side. I freelance write, whatever. And it's like, I kind of like doing my own thing and making my own choices in that way and having control. So I decided I was going to sort of test out some things while I was still working. I was doing a little bit of PR on the side. And then it just, I don't know, it was like wildfire. Yeah. Like word just kind of spread, particularly in my community. And I got busier and busier to the point where I couldn't do my job anymore. And I was like, okay, it's time to go. As much as they wanted me to stay, I gave notice and I made the leap. to start my own media consulting business. And it's just been nonstop. So that was 6 years ago, and it's been nonstop since. It's been great.
I'm glad you did it. I'm glad you did it
I'm glad I
because
did too. Best decision I ever made. No regrets.
I remember at a certain point in time, and I shared this story a lot, that somebody asked me whether my channel pays me. And I said, not at the moment. And they said, if it doesn't, then stop. And I think it felt like the person took a knife to me.
Mhm.
The way I reacted was so instantaneous. I didn't even know who it was that reacted to that. But that is to say that the passion with which I do this, the joy it brings me, it's not, the money will be great, but it's the beauty of having learning and teachable moments with persons like yourself,
Mhm.
that I learned that it is possible.
Mhm.
And right now, I didn't even know there was a job coach.
Yes. Yes. There are.
So I am learning. I just put it down and circle it in my red pen to
Mhm.
find myself also a job coach.
Yeah, and we did all these little, tests and stuff, and your risk, assessment, and all of those things. Because as an entrepreneur, you gotta bet on you. You gotta depend on yourself. What do they say? You eat what you kill, and
Yes.
so
Yes.
it's up to you to get motivated every day and to sell yourself. And for me, again, a person who was a producer and always sort of behind the scenes, it was very much a source of discomfort and getting used to telling people what I'm doing my elevator pitch, getting people to trust in me. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then, and this is something as a woman, deciding what to charge, making sure that I wasn't undercharging, right? Because we tend to be nice, and, putting a value on my work and my time and all of those sort of things. And it's been a very great learning process, and I've seen myself grow from that. And you talk about my social media, and I had no interest in being on camera and doing all these sort of things. I know that I can do it, but it's not
Yes.
what I wanted to do. And so, to your point, in terms of like making money and whatnot, I'm not interested in being an influencer. I do it, to promote my business, and I guess in turn that does make me money, but it's not the reason that I do it. And I think that whoever told you that, I think part of what someone once told me is, and just as a journalist, like always look at the source. So
Mhm.
somebody who's giving you that advice, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because you have to think about where they're coming from, whether it's coming from a place of jealousy. Oh, she's confident and enough to have launched her own stuff, and how did she figure out how to do this technical camera stuff and audio stuff and editing, and I'm still sitting here, whatever, working at Walmart. Like, how is she doing? You know what I mean? So you have to be careful about people who give you
Mhm.
advice or judge you, or who have never done social media, or don't know what's involved, or don't know how to, the analytics, or how to get any people, that they're going to say, well, if you're not making money, then you shouldn't do it. Well, you don't know why I'm doing it. That's the first question you need to ask: is, was money the motivator? Well, then maybe, yeah,
No,
if you're not making money, then yeah, maybe it's not. You need to look, not that you shouldn't do it, you need to look at what you're doing and maybe reassess how you can make money. But to tell you, oh, you shouldn't be doing it, I question, what is that person doing?
yeah. For me personally, it's like having this conversation with you is a masterclass. I
Mhm.
don't have to make the mistakes and challenges that you have. You sharing it with me. I have my pen and my paper, so I can write it and go reframe, and re-strategize my how do we call it, and re-strategize. But most important, it gives me the opportunity also to become a client of yours and get better at what I'm doing.
Mhm.
So it's a win-win situation for me, that money is not the motivator, but the lessons and the beauty of connection and relationships,
Mhm.
it's unparalleled. It's
That's right.
unparalleled. Yes.
it can't be the motivator. And I tell you, it's never been my motivator. Because if you're chasing checks or you're chasing the money, you won't be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It has to
Mm-hmm.
be something else that's driving you, whether it's passion, whether it's I'm a very competitive person, so it's I'm trying to get the win for my client. I'm trying to get them as much coverage as I can, and yes, I do get paid, but it's not that's not the motivator for me. The motivator for me is when they're happy. The motivator for me is when I turn on the TV and I see somebody story that I got on TV, or I open the paper and I see their story, and or I turn on the radio, I hear them doing an interview. That's the motivator for me.
You did it. You did it. Yes. Nice, 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 nice. So find a speaker. I know you have this beautiful event going, which is coming on soon.
Mm-hmm.
And I really had to write it in red so I don't forget. I have my color coded red, green pens so I don't forget. So it's written in red, which means it is a critical topic to speak about.
Mm-hmm.
So that, as they say, the platform is yours. Find a speaker. I've been listening to some of these speakers and it is incredible. The amount of Black women
Mm-hmm.
there that are doing things that I had no idea. And you have pulled this beautiful talent. Either you pulled them together or we came to you and you're creating this platform for Find a Speaker. Could you please, illustrate on how the idea came up,
Sure.
what you're doing? In fact, it's yours. Take it.
Well, I have a platform called Find an Expert that I launched with my media consulting company. So, Find an Expert was an idea that I came up with because, again, there was the same sort of repetitive voices that we were hearing on different issues all the time in the media, and I knew that there were other voices that could give their expertise on those same issues that weren't given an opportunity. So I launched Find an Expert. I did media training. I helped them prepare. I pitched them for stories. And again, a lot of my experts and my clients are from the Black community, but I have clients from other communities as well who also feel like their voice isn't getting any sort of play right in the media. And so that was something that I conceptualized and I did, and I pitched on a bi-weekly basis so that they can see that we can talk about more than race, we can talk about more than sports or entertainment, but we can talk about mental health, or we can talk about real estate, or we can talk about um, uh, um, diet and nutrition. So that was one of the things that was important to me as my media consulting business plan. And so, how Find a Speaker came out was two things. One of my speakers, Mitzi Hunter, one of my experts, Mitzi Hunter, and someone I had also done work for as a politician, she was transitioning out of her political life into private, but she was getting a lot of requests for speaking, and she didn't know how to price herself. She didn't know how to negotiate. She didn't know what she should be asking for in terms of travel, those sort of things. And so she was coming to me for advice over and over again. And I had this idea when I was pregnant with my first child about having a speakers bureau. This was before there was like diversity or anything happening in this world, really pre George Floyd. And I was on maternity leave, and there was a program that would help you give you seed money to launch a business. So I put together this proposal. I've been working at City at the time, so I knew a lot of people like the Pinball Clemens of the world, and some sporting people and whatnot. So, and some people obviously in the media. And I put together this proposal, and I met with the intake person and told him my idea, which he thought was a great idea, but I was skeptical that I could get these people to be a part of my bureau. So I didn't get the funding, even though I know I could have. And I kind of buried that idea. So when Mitzi approached me, it resurrected again. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I should do like have Find an Expert. Maybe I should do Find a Speaker. And so she and I talked, and she was like, "Oh, I'll be your guinea pig. Well, I'll try it out. Well, let's start." So I started with her, and then I Justice Donald McLeod, who is a close friend of mine, saw what I was doing and said, "Yeah, I get a lot of requests. Maybe you can help me, organize those." And so he was my second client, and we posted some stuff on LinkedIn, on social media, and then it just blew up from there. And I had people reaching out to me, some of my experts, and then some people that knew people and people who had heard about me, looking for a speakers bureau to join. I haven't done any outreach or marketing or asked anybody to be a part of it. Everybody has come to me, which again, I think speaks to the work that I do, and the confidence that I have in myself and the confidence that people have in me, that I can create this bureau and platform for them. So we soft launched the beginning of the year. So we're basically 8 months in, and we're doing a showcase on September 12th, for industry people like HR people, event organizers, people who hire speakers, bookers, and we're showcasing our women in our speakers bureau. And they're just doing like basically a 10-minute elevator pitch. So they're showcasing their speaking or talking about themselves, so people can get an idea of what they have to offer. And we partnered with Cineplex, they're a sponsor, and we're doing it at their venue. And so I'm really excited about that. It's our first event. And we're now starting to plan our second event, which will be on March 15th, which will have the whole speaker bureau, so the guys as well. And that's going to be linked with World Speech Day, which I've now become the Canadian ambassador for. So I'm really excited about that as
Wow.
well. Yeah.
It is just beautiful how the universe has a way of bringing all these things together, and just make it beautiful. It's I'm at a loss for words. I'm not a person who is normally at a loss for words, but I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
It is much needed within our community. I know, even though you said you do broader, but for our community, it's nice to see a sister and come to a sister who looks like me, have gone through similar challenges as myself. So when I speak to you, you know where I'm
Mhm.
coming from. Yeah. And I think that's what draws us so much to your work. You are giving to us what we've been searching for, that we've not had the opportunity. um so let me get away with the fandom again. So, um as a self-employed woman right now, or a boss lady, an entrepreneur, I love entrepreneurship, even though it's really challenging. So when I see people who have done that transition into media entrepreneurship or whatever entrepreneurship, it's like, what are some of the challenges? What are some of the lessons you've learned? And if somebody wants to, like, what can you share? Because I have my pen and paper ready.
So, oh man, I've learned a lot. Just trying to, I don't have, I have a few things that I would say. I wish I had more time, but I'm going to narrow it down for anybody who's considering being an entrepreneur. I think you have to recognize um, the person that you are. It's not for everyone. And so you have to be able to self regulate. You have to be able to sacrifice and not do everything that you were doing when you're working for someone. So, the long weekend is coming. So maybe you're not going out, to the barbecue, and you're not going out to the long weekend party because you've got to whatever it is, right? So because you're in charge, right? It's not that
Mhm.
something you can put off. And so there's definitely that boundaries, and particularly if you're working at home, boundaries, right? And really setting those with the people that you live with, the people that your friends, because what tends to happen, and I I've had to, oh, well, you work for yourself, and they think you can call in the middle of the day and talk to you for an hour, right? And you can get caught up in that, right? And but if you're working in a company, you couldn't sit and talk for an hour with somebody. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you have to stay focused, right? And so some people think, oh, well, you're home, I can call you, or you're home, I can drop by, and but then the work doesn't get done. So, and then on the flip side, you're thinking, well, I can do it later, and you don't want to burn out staying up late doing the work that you should have been doing in the day when your brain was focused and you can do it, right? So definitely boundaries. And then also just knowing that you're going to have to be a jack of all trades or a Jill of all trades. I started out and I became the accountant. I was the marketing person. I was the bookkeeper. I was the lawyer. I, right? You are going to have to do everything. I was a social media person. You're going to have to do everything at first until you recognize, and that was really hard for me because I talked about control. You recognize that you have to let some things go and pay someone to do it and put a value on your time. The time that I'm taking to figure out, I don't use it, but just say, for example, figure out TikTok. I could pay someone who's 17, 18 years old to do it for me in like 2 seconds, right? So is it worth my time to sit for an hour trying to figure out how to do a TikTok video when I can pay this person $20 an hour and she can do like 10 TikTok videos in that time? So you got to figure out what is your time worth, and then okay, what can I allocate? I'm okay with numbers, but do I want to spend time doing bookkeeping? Not really. I could probably be doing a proposal that's going to make me thousands of
Mm-hmm.
dollars, right? And then pay someone a percentage of that thousands of dollars to do the bookkeeping. So you have to know what to release and to outsource to other folks who are much better and skilled at doing it. And then I guess finally, I would say that I'll say finally. I mean, there's so much more I could say, but I would say finally, I would say that you have to, when we talked about like the no's, right? You have to not let the no's get you down. There are going to be no's for the rest of your life, but there are going to be a lot of yeses as well. So you focus on the yeses. And I learned that from being a journalist, being a chase producer. When you're calling people to try and get them on, and you have to talk them into it, and people say no, okay, you got to keep it moving. So I didn't get this contract. Okay, keep it moving, go to the next person. You'll find somebody who is interested in your product, your service, what you're selling. It's just going to take you a little while longer. So you have to have perseverance and persistence and not let those no's set you back.
Wow. On that note, I'm not adding anything else. Fenella, you have said it all. You have summed it. This did not feel like an interview. It felt like a masterclass at life, because you've talked about life, you've talked about business, and you've talked about your work. And I'm not going to spoil it. Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. This has been the Nana Yabua podcast. Please do not forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for our beautiful episodes, which will be coming up shortly. Thank you so much.